All right, Photopea. We're going to use Photopea to create a double exposure effect. So we've been learning all kinds of cool tools in Photoshop, adjustment layers, layer masks, selections, blending modes. We're going to put all that together. This technique's relatively easy, but you got to know how the tools work. That's why we were practicing them before we got here. But I'm going to walk you through it anyways. We're going to walk through the steps. I'm going to show you how this works, and you're going to create 3 of your own. So first step, I got Photopea open, and I want to click on New Project. New Project. So in the directions, I told you to make it 8 by 10 and 100 DPI. So let's walk through how to do that. First things first, let's name our project. New project doesn't do us any good. That doesn't tell us anything. So your naming convention should be last name, dash, first name, dash. Then you want to have the name of the assignment. This one's double exposure, so I'm going to do double. And I like to do camel case, where the first letter of the second word is uppercase, double exposure, dash 01, since you're going to do 3 of these. Right now it's set to pixels, which is used for designing for the web. We're going to design for print, so we're going to change from pixels to inches. And the directions told you to do it 8 by 10. So I'm clicking in there, 8 by 10 inches. You can see the templates over on the right. The size changed. DPI. 72 is low resolution. That's for making a web project. 300 is for print. But your Chromebooks might not like 300. So we're going to compromise. Our printer will print well at 180. So we're going to change our DPI to 180. 8 by 10, make sure it says inches, DPI 180, click create. Now we got a new document, 8 by 10. So we need to get some pictures in here. We need to get something to start with. How are we going to bring a picture into Photopea? We're going to come all the way up to the top menu here with inside of Photopea, click on File, and we want to choose Open in Place. That means that we're going to open something, a picture, and place it into this document. So File, Open in Place. You should have in your Google Drive a new folder for every project. This project's called Double Exposure. You can see here I have a folder called Double Exposure. Within that Double Exposure folder, you should have the pictures you're going to use. Make sure that double exposure folder is inside your class folder that I created for you so that I can see your work at the end. So I'm going to click on the image I want to bring in. This is from Pexels. I'm going to put the link in the description if you want to download it and follow along with my pictures for practice. And I'm going to click choose. So this says brought our image in. It hasn't placed it yet. You could see there's this bounding box with the little squares and stuff around it. It hasn't finalized it yet. We're still able to move it and resize it. I'm going to move her over to the right. If you notice, her shoulder's cut off here, so I want to put that right on the edge. And then when I'm all the way done, I like where it's at, I can hit return, or I can hit the check mark up here on the options bar. I usually hit return, but I'll show you where the check mark is in case you want to do it that way. So I told you to take a picture, shoulder up, headshot like this, on a clean, solid background, because it's going to make selections a whole lot easier. Even Photopea can make pretty clean selections. Photoshop does better. Photopea does a pretty good job. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up to Select, up on our menu here, Select, and we're going to choose Magic Cut. I believe on Photoshop it's called Select Subject, but I can't remember exactly. Anyhow, you'll be able to figure it out if you're on Photoshop. And I'm going to click Magic Cut. My computer will figure it out pretty fast. Your Chromebook might take a little bit more time. On the left-hand side, we kind of have the original. And green is saying, okay, I want to keep pixels kind of in this area. The red is get rid of these pixels that are similar to this. And then over on the right, we can kind of see what that looks like. The checkers means transparent, so it made a pretty good selection. There's some yellow fringing right here, all right? And a little bit of the hair is cut off and stuff, so we'll fix that in the next step. We're working non-destructively, so we don't want a new layer, we want a mask. So down arrow, raster mask, and click OK. Now she's cut out. Reason why it's white is because we have that white background. And then we have the mask, right? Black hid the background, and white made her visible. But we have some yellow fringing and some little pieces of hair missing, so we're going to see if we can clean that up a little bit. We need to make a selection of her. I know we just did that, but we need to select only her. So we have this mask, and if you're on a Chromebook, it's Control. If you're on Windows, it's Control. If you're on a Mac, it's Command. So I'm going to try to remember, even though I'm on a Mac, I'm going to try to remember to say the Chrome shortcut key, okay? So Command click, or Control click, I already messed up, there we go. Control click on the mask. And that's going to create this selection, little dots, hard to see, little tiny dots around our subject. And then we're going to take any of the selection tools. I find clicking on the magic wand the easiest. Any selection tool will work. That gives us this option on the option bar called Refine Edge. I'm going to click on it. It's going to take a moment to analyze. It'll take you on Chromebooks a little bit longer. So we're looking at it, and we're going to refine the edge a little bit. It messed up the eye here a little and part of her chin. We'll fix that in the next step. I'm going to come over on the edge of the hair, right on the hair over here. I'm going to draw over it to refine the edge a little bit, but I want my circle, my brush, a little bit smaller. So I'm going to do the left bracket key. I'm just going to make that a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to paint over in this kind of hair region, and I'm going to see if Photopea can figure it out a little bit, kinda. It's doing a little bit. It's not great. Photoshop is definitely better at this, but Photopea does a great job for a free program. So I'm looking at the right, it's getting a little bit of the hair. See how it's gotten rid of some of that yellow and stuff, and it's done a better job. It got rid of her eye a little bit here and a little bit of her lip. So we'll fix that up in the next step. We don't want to do a layer. We're using non-destructive. So we want to use raster mask and click OK. So there we go. And I can turn this off. And if I use my zoom tool, you can see like right there, right? It got part of this transparent. So what do I need to do? I'm on my mask. White will reveal and black will disappear. So right now my top color, I'm on the toolbar, I'm looking down, all the way at the bottom left is black. But I want to paint in white to bring that back. So I'm going to hit X on my keyboard. It's going to switch to white. If these colors aren't black and white, hit D for default. And then X switches between the two. And then get the brush tool right here, B for brush. And I'm just going to paint in very slowly on these kind of areas here that, and it's going to be slow, right? Even mine's slow, yours is going to be even slower. But I want to fix that transparency. And I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. I'm going to stay away from the edge as best I can. I don't want to go outside, right? But I do want to paint this in. And it's going slow. It's Photopea. It's not Photoshop. I'm not used to it this slow. You guys will be a little frustrated too. It's okay. I'm going to hit my space bar. It's going to give me a little handle, and I'm just going to click and drag up. And I want to paint over where I can see that transparency coming in, right? So my refine edge messed up some of that a little bit. So I'm just painting over it. If I accidentally paint outside, right? And I get some yellow. X on the keyboard, that switches to black. And then I can just get it back. That's the beauty of layer mask. I'm going to hold the space bar. I'm going to come over here. And I noticed her ear was a little bit off. So X to switch back to white. I'm just coming kind of slow. And I want to get that in. Then I can hit Control minus. I can zoom back out. And now we have a pretty clean selection. For this effect to work, I wouldn't say to work. That's not the right word. The most common way people do this effect is with black and white. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to convert her to black and white non-destructively using an adjustment layer. So I'm going to come down here. At the bottom of my layers panel, there's a circle cut in half. I'm going to do a new adjustment layer. And we want to do black and white. Black and white. And I want this adjustment layer to only affect her. So I need to clip it to her. Right? I need to make a clipping mask. So I'm going to right click and choose clipping mask. And you can see it indented the adjustment layer a little bit. And this arrow points down to our other layer. I'm also going to add another layer. I'm going to click new adjustment layer. And I'm going to add a levels adjustment layer. We're going to use this later to adjust the blacks and the whites to customize the blending of our two images. So I have levels and I want to clip this. I can right click like I showed you before, or you can Alt or Option click on it and it will do the same thing. It's a little shortcut and it indents it, does that down arrow. All right. So this would be a good point if you haven't saved already. File, and then save as PSD, or if you have saved to Google Drive option there, you can choose that. And it's just asking me if it wants to allow me to save. That way, if it crashes, we can open it up back from this point, right? Because you never know what's going to crash. I know you guys are having some issues with your Chromebook. So save often. So I saved it. We got this picture set up. Now we need our trees or our cityscape or whatever picture you're going to blend in. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to do File, Open in Place. I'm going to choose this skyline right here, this cityscape. I'm going to click Choose. And I'm going to move it up here for now. And I want to adjust the opacity so that I can kind of see where it's fitting inside of her. So I'm going to bring this down, something like that, just so I could see it. Then I'm going to take my selection tool. It's the very top tool, the pointy arrow. Click on Transform Controls. Then I'm going to tilt this. I think it'll look kind of cool if the cityscape's kind of coming out of her head like that. All right, so I'm going to do something like that. I can always move it later. When I'm done kind of adjusting it, right, I can hit this check mark right here or the return key. And then I want to turn my transform controls off so they're not distracting me. And we want to do the same thing, right? We want to do this black and white. So I'm going to add an adjustment layer, black and white. Right click, clipping mask, add a second adjustment layer, and we're going to add levels to this also. Right click, clipping mask. Now to make this blend in, there's multiple ways to do this. We can mask it all out just so it fits in our head. I'm going to turn on my background layer here so we have the white background. We want that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that second image I brought in. We learned about blending modes in one of the warm-up activities. So I'm going to, instead of normal, I'm going to come down to Lighten. All right, I'm going to choose Lighten. And right now, we can't see much, right? It kind of is very light. It's because I forgot to bring my opacity back up. I brought the opacity down to move the picture in place, and I forgot to bring it back to 100. So boom, I'm going to bring that back to 100, and now we're starting to see the effect that we want. So since we made this lighten, what it did was taking this layer, it shows the dark pixels and hides some other pixels, right? It blends it in with the image underneath. So it hid her black hair. So since we did lighten, it hid her black hair because the sky is white and it kept the brighter parts, okay? But we don't want that hair outline like that. We want just the buildings, right? And for it to look like it's disappearing. So how do we do that? That's why we have this levels adjustment layer. I'm going to click on levels right here, lev, the top one. And we have this histogram, and these are our range of colors. These are blacks, these are our whites. As we move this, any pixels that are in this range are going to turn white. So this is kind of gray. We want them white and they'll disappear. So I'm just going to move this little slider over like that just until that line disappears. And then it looks like, boom, she doesn't have a head and that is growing out of it. Now, you can also mess with our midtones, right? And that's just going to darken some midtone ranges and it could bring in more of the city. You can even adjust this one, the blacks, a little bit just to make that more defined. You can come down here on the levels for her and you can do the same thing. If you go white, it'll lighten her a little bit, right? I can adjust some of this. I don't want her skin tone to get too crazy, but I can adjust some of these and you can just kind of experiment, right? And get the two images kind of how you want. I'm going to click Pro or Properties right here to close that. Now, I like it on her head like this, but I don't like it on her forehead and over here on her ear. So what can I do? I'm going to click on this. I'm going to rename it just so I know what I'm doing. I'm going to call that Cityscape. And I'm going to rename this one Portrait. So I'm naming my layers, staying organized. On my Cityscape, I want to add a layer mask. So I'm going to add before we do that, if you haven't saved, save as PSD, right? Or Command S to save. So I'm on my Cityscape. I'm going to add a mask. Boom. Our mask is white, so it's showing all of the cityscape. I want to paint in black. The opposite of white is going to hide it. So X on my keyboard, if we're looking here, I have white as my foreground color. X is going to switch it to black. I'm going to take my brush. And what I like to do is I'm going to adjust the flow. I'm going to make the flow 10%. That's going to, the way that works is 10% of it's going to disappear at a time. And as I keep painting over it, 10% more, 10% more, 10% more. And it just makes for a smoother transition. And I also like to soften my edge a little bit. So up here, click down on the brush. I'm going to soften my edge. I'll try 60%. I need a bigger brush, so I'm going to bring that up somewhere. Every picture is a little different. I'll try that. I can always use the bracket keys. And then I'm going to paint back and forth until I get what I want, right? And I want kind of some of that skin to be there. And I want maybe not that on the hair strand. I can do left bracket to get a little bit smaller. And I can adjust my flow, right? If that's taking me too long, I can say, okay, 10%'s too low. So I'm going to come in and do 20, and then it will hide a little bit quicker, right? And I don't want it on the ear. It's kind of up to you on how you want to blend it. I'm just thinking, man, this looks better if it's not on her ear and it's just kind of growing out of her hair. That's kind of the style that I'm going for. And I can blend it here a little bit, right? I could save at this point, just as I'm going along. Right now, you have a pretty good project, right? Right there, it's not too bad. I'm going to show you a couple tricks just to fine-tune this. One, I can see the hair right there. So what if I come in on my levels for her, and let's see if we can make that hair go away. With the blending mode, not so much. Doesn't look like it. So We're going to click on the mask, right? I'm going to take the brush, and then I'm just going to, well, maybe I don't want to do that. I'll leave the hair there or else the building kind of disappears. It'll be okay. Being too picky on that one. All right, so I'm going to show you one last technique or a couple little fine-tuning things you can experiment with. This gets you a project, all right? But what else can we do to make it kind of cool? I'm going to click on the very top layer, and then I'm going to come down to Adjustment Layers, and I'm going to add a gradient map. And what I'm going to do with the gradient map is I'm going to color grade this photo. I'm going to tint it a little bit. So it's black and white, and by default our gradient map is black and white. So I'm going to click on it, and I'll just move this out of the way so you can see my image. And I have black, and it fades to white. So I'm going to double click on black. Got my color picker. I'll move that out of the way so you can see. And what if I pick something like that, right? I can come in through in the color range here somewhere. I can add a little tint. When I like what I want, I can click OK. I can keep this white. I can double click on the white. I can do, right, another color in there, something opposite on the color wheel, like a blue and yellow. I'm going to keep it white, I think, just do a blue tint for now. And I can click OK. And then I have kind of a little blue tint to it. You can click on the gradient, come up here and change it if you want, right? Reverse does that. You don't want that. But that gives it a little tint. I can turn it off, right? What else could I do? I'll show you this. This is kind of cool. I'm going to take my portrait layer. I'm going to drag it down to the new layers, right next to the trash. New layer. It's going to duplicate it. Then I'm going to drag it up right below the gradient map like that. All right, I can turn the gradient map off just for a second. I can see I have her. She's covering everything up. Well, what if I try some blending modes, right? What if I come in here and I try something like that? That looks kind of cool, right? What does color dodge do? Oh, it's kind of trippy, right? Overlay. I like that. Now that's kind of neat, right? I can even add, well, that'll kind of cover it up, but it'll still, right, changes it a little bit. I can turn that gradient map off. Another thing I can do is I can turn that off for now. What if I turned off black and white and then the cityscapes color, right? Or I turned off black and white there in the cityscapes color. So you can try, it doesn't have to be all black and white. You can try a couple different things. I can try something like that. It's kind of cool. I can add the black and white. I think that's kind of neat. I can come in, see what some of these do. Maybe not. But it's just kind of practice, right? Adjust things, see what they do. Do a couple different versions. You can undo stuff. Super easy. And that's it. That should give you a pretty good idea. Save it out when you're done, right? Save as PSD or save to Google Drive. And then also make sure to export as a JPEG, and that'll be the version that you're going to put up on Flickr. It was a long walkthrough. Took my time. I tried to explain all the steps. You should have adjustment layers, layer mask. Have fun with it. Should be fun. Should be cool. I know your Chromebooks are slow. Do the best you can. You guys are doing awesome.